Is about to start. Thank you very much. We welcome several brothers and sisters from around Europe here. Among them, Annie Cryer, a long-time contributor to the UK Shiatsu Society. Annie, exactly how many years have you been working for the Shiatsu Society of the UK?
Well, in my capacity at the moment, just the 5, but in other capacities, maybe about 30.
We're talking about decades here, folks, and that brings us to the title of our talk, which is Longevity in Practice. So the people we'll be talking to today have done that. They've managed to stay in practice for a long time, and we'll be discussing today some of the perhaps challenges or obstacles or the bumps in the road that you might meet on the way, and perhaps some strategies for negotiating those bumps in the road and those challenges. We have Danielle Chevillon from France here, who I believe studied with the one and only Masunaga many years ago. Danielle, when was that exactly? She's just unmuting herself here, hopefully.
Yes. Yes, so what did you ask me?
When exactly were you studying with Masunaga? What was the year and when was the time?
Well, so that were the last years of Masunaga before he died. So from 78, 77 till 80.
And which probably means that you've been in practice doing Shiatsu since that time. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
So you can see, folks, that's like we're talking about 40 to 50 years here in a sense.
Professionally, it's 45 years.
We're going to be coming back to you, Danielle, and asking you a few questions about how you've managed to pull that off, how you've managed to do that. But let me first talk to David Imhoof, who's waiting in Zurich, in Switzerland, impatiently bursting to tell us all about himself and his methods of staying in practice. David, welcome.
Welcome. Hi, Chris. Thank you for having me. Hello, everybody.
David, roughly how long have you been in practice doing Shiatsu, professionally speaking?
Roughly 25 years.
Have you noticed that it's been an uphill struggle or a nice downhill coasting?
Both. Many roads that cross, and but I was not only involved in Shiatsu, I'm also involved in theater. So that also helped me to balance things out, and I still do that. And I love that a lot. So
excellent. Let's roll back around to that theme later on, because it does make a big difference what you do besides Shiatsu, doesn't it? Let's ask Bill Palmer, one of our senior members. Bill, how long have you been in this funny old game we call Shiatsu?
Well, I first experienced Shiatsu in 1973. And then I was so impressed that I asked my teacher to, he was my Aikido teacher, and I asked him to teach me. So there wasn't any profession at that time in Europe or anything. So basically about 50 years.
50 years, you've seen quite a few people come and go during that time, I imagine, Bill.
Yes, yes.
Do you think there are anybody who started roughly at the same time as you who's still hanging around, working away?
Well, my stablemate was Rex LaSalle, and he was studying with the same Aikido teacher. And then about the same time, I think Mike Rose started to study. But at that time, there was really no idea of Shiatsu as a therapy, professional therapy. It was like our way of exploring ourselves rather than learning to do a profession.
Interesting. So you've seen a shift and a change in that sense as well.
Yeah.
I think both of those two gentlemen you mentioned are active still, no? Rex and Michael?
Rex is definitely. I don't know about Mike. I saw him the other day. He's still around, but I don't know whether he's practicing very much. So.
When you think back to that time when you started, Bill, and you compare it to the time you find yourself in now, what would you say is the main difference between your method of practicing?
It's been a long journey. So, but I think that when I was young, I was interested in. I was interested in rescuing people and you know, healing them and doing magic. And now I'm not at all interested in that. I'm much more interested in just listening and helping them to be aware of themselves. So
I'd like to come back to Annie, and I'm quite aware, Annie, that you do different things beside your shiatsu. For example, you do yoga as well. Wouldn't you say that's part of your survival strategy?
Yeah, definitely. Really. So I see my shiatsu as part of a thread of different practices, and my qigong and my yoga and all the other life things like a rich family life and all of those things definitely have, well, they bolster and act as a support for each other. But I do see my shiatsu as a life practice as yoga and qigong is. So that has helped me weather some of the financial storms apart from anything else.
You raise an interesting question there, Annie, because the financial stress on a shiatsu therapist can be considerable, can't it?
Yeah. And what a shame it is that we can't train all these beautiful people and students and graduates and then say, look, here's an amazing profession and you're just going to earn loads of money from this and it's going to be so enriching in every way. But actually, poverty does have its own stresses. However, before all of this, I was a primary school teacher. I definitely can put things into perspective. And I kind of have a little joke with the universe. If I have a long, hard day and people don't show up for shiatsu or whatever, I say, well, it's not like going down the mines or teaching 36 six-year-olds in one room. So although the financial challenges are real, the enriching aspect of being part of the shiatsu world is, you know, you can get rich in other ways, can't you?
Most certainly. Danielle, did you resonate with what Annie was saying there about the balance between the financial rewards and the other rewards of shiatsu?
Yes, for me also yoga was already in my life, and it brought me a lot in my practice and in the way of breathing and how to teach it, because I used the yoga to start always in teaching. So that was, something important.
And what about the financial aspect? Have you struggled at times to keep your practice going, to keep your life together based on shiatsu as a profession?
I don't know how I did it because I didn't have any other profession, only shiatsu, so practice and teaching.
Yeah.
But I was lucky to be able to teach as soon as I started in 1980. So that was because at this time tendency was a macrobiotic in France, in Paris anyway. So I just got in this kind of group of people and seminar, and it started like that.
So you managed somehow.
Yes, I managed.
Good for you. Fantastic.
At this time, it was easier, I think.
You think it was easier before?
Everything was cheaper. I mean, to have to rent apartment and everything. Now it wouldn't be possible. No.
So, David, Danielle is talking about a perspective that started almost 50 years ago. Yours started a little bit more recently. Have you also experienced that financial juggling act where you have to make things balance to survive?
Yes, of course. Yeah. I mean, I live in Switzerland, which is also, I mean, I think also England is very expensive. Zurich is very expensive. The health insurance explodes. It doubled, more than doubled than 20 years ago. So yeah, you have to pay 1,300 euros every month for the family for the health insurance. And then the rest comes. So that's a big thing, yeah. And also a problem we have 55 health insurance companies, different ones. And I think every CEO is driving a Bugatti or Porsche or so probably. So, and we try politically to somehow find a solution, but that's a long way because people they want everything and then they don't want to pay for it and everything is very expensive. And on the other hand, we are lucky in Switzerland that Shiatsu as a profession is very well established and unaccount. So also the health insurance pays up to 75% for every session you give. So for that, you can ask a little bit more money and, you know, people are coming. It's not about, the issue is not about money if they're coming or not. But I think I had 10 years to build up my practice for sure. I started in every day, and on Saturday I went working in a shared room, and then gradually I had my own space like now I'm having now. And now things are going very well, but it was a long way. And then sometimes I was happy I could do theater or even work in a bar or do other things or directing theater pieces or things that somehow in total it all works out.
David,
But
do you mean that you were getting paid for this other work you were doing at the theater?
yes, of course. Yeah.
Excellent. So that's another way of looking at it, where you have alternative income streams, right? That's the modern phrase for that.
That you have, yeah, alternative income streams, but they're still connected also to Shiatsu for me. Like at the end of Shiatsu school, I wrote about an essay about Shiatsu and theater, because I think it goes very beautifully together. And the one is influencing and how to say, nähren each other. So also nourishing each other. So, and you can switch and you can learn from the Shiatsu side to do art or music or dance or whatever. And then when you come back and you treat, you get another insight or another information coming in. So I always loved that. At the beginning, I thought I have to make a decision. And then over the years, I realized, why should I decide just for one thing? Actually, I love both, and both are like belong to my life project, I could say. Now I love that really very much.
That sounds like a cross-pollination from several different spheres into one life.
Yeah, pattern. I always like that. Also from other people, or if I read other biographies, or yeah, I love to fuse things together. And Shiatsu is also like that. It's a huge, endless toolbox, multi-dimensional, and you can learn different pieces, and then you build your style. And yeah, I like that.
I think somebody who might relate to a lot of what you just said is Bill Palmer. You've been innovating for a long time, Bill, using different streams into your Shiatsu, correct?
Yes, yeah. So yes, I mean, I've always found that I mean, I haven't had a struggle financially with at the moment, but in a way, developing my work has been a creative thing. It's like trying to bring all the strands, like you were saying, David. It's like bringing all the strands of life together. So it hasn't just been Shiatsu, it's been movement and voice work. And voice work's been really important for me too, as a way of exploring. But I think most of my income over the years has come from teaching, and that teaching is teaching sort of supports the therapy, and takes the pressure off the therapy. And nowadays, I see very few people, but I teach a lot. And COVID was actually a real advantage at that, because what happens is that we started to teach Qigong online twice a week. And instead of seeing people in different countries once a year or twice a year, we saw them every week, and a big sort of international community is formed, which provides a big support for me and a support for everyone else. It's like a community who in some way it's not just focused on me. It's that's the really important thing, I think, that and in terms of longevity of practice, I find that one of the things that make me most tired is when people are depending on me. And so forming community and forming relationships between other people, rather than it all being focused on me, that they're supporting each other, that's really taken the pressure off me. And then I can just be one of the group in some way, but one that's giving, maybe inspiring ideas and whatever, but not a guru figure or a magician figure. And yeah.
Wonderful.
I don't know whether that answers your question. I was just rambling.
It not only answers the question, Bill, it proposes another line of communication. Annie, do you resonate with that idea of being, rather than a leader, a part of a group that works together?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I absolutely do. And I'm still so lucky to be part of the Shiatsu College. So I trained with the Shiatsu College, and that was always right from its inception, this idea of collaboration and community. Like every family, the Shiatsu College has had its family script stuff, but the idea of working together has been really very important. In fact, I would question how people can survive just on their own as an individual, rather than getting together with like-minded people, forming something that Nicola Lee, one of my dear friends and original teachers, has coined the phrase grassroots shiatsu. And when I first started in 86, somewhere like that, so old I forget, it wasn't a professional training that I went to. For 3 years. Nicola ran a community class just in a hall, and it was just for anybody that was interested in learning about shiatsu and all its incumbent threads. And I think, as Bill said, we sort of lost that over the decades. It became this one-to-one therapeutic emphasis on that. And I would like to really emphasize how nourishing collaboration and community effort and anyway, that's the way Qi works. We know that from our learning our art, but sometimes we don't put that into practice. So it's kind of all about putting the Shiatsu way into practice.
Sounds like you're proposing collaboration and community work rather than trying to go it alone. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, I do. I think, well, if we go it alone, the energy is of one person. If we hook up with 3 or 4 people in our area and put on any self-shiatsu or qigong classes or whatever, then that energy is multiplied. And of course, that's the way it works. Then we get it back. And yeah, so definitely, yeah, the idea of teaching and being the sage on the stage is really not where I get my own nourishment from.
Sounds like group activity is what Annie's proposing there. David, does that strike a chord with you?
Yes, I like to hear that. I love teaching too. I'm teaching with the IKT in Switzerland, like as a guest. So what I miss a bit is the really to have time to sit together or exchange. This is something that I find difficult to really find this time because everybody's so busy. But to be inside of a school and teach, I teach my structural work and Shintai, and I do that for 10 years, and I like to do that. So that's a very nice way of sharing Shiatsu. And also, just a few months ago, I built up a new course just with 5 people in my practice. It was like it was about giving tools how to change your state, to do some Tai Chi, Qigong, together, or alchemy work together, and so bring things that people can take home and do that at home. So I love to do that also, but I just also see me as somebody who is walking this path and assembling a lot of things and then sharing this, and I'm not seeing me as a therapist or something like, yeah, as a therapist maybe, but more as a guide in helping and giving impulses like the wood element. I'm more like that. I love to receive them and I love to share it and to contribute. So, but I still miss the real time sitting together, like now we do on Zoom. This is beautiful. And I'm also working in an institution that works with burnout clients. So I have also talks with other doctors or psychotherapists and so. But there is also a little bit. One sharing is just reading what they write on the computer, and the actual sharing then is mostly when you have lunch together. Then you eat, and then the last 10 minutes you talk about somebody. And then a lot of information comes. You really have to make this time possible that you can to be there live, 3-dimensional, and meet and talk and share time. This is something that I found difficult in these times because it's everything so fast.
Yeah, that sounds very important. Daniela, do you find time to share with other colleagues, either from Shiatsu or other disciplines? Is that a possibility for you?
This possibility, I have to receive myself Shiatsu and give Shiatsu to some of my colleagues.
That's nice.
I know. Now I'm living in Marseille for 8 years, so I had to create some new relations. But in Paris, yes, it was very easy to exchange.
So exchanging Shiatsu straight one-to-one, that would be a method for you of keeping your vitality and your energy at a high level?
Sure, very important. From the beginning, I always received Shiatsu regularly.
And regularly means once a week or once a month? Or
once a month. Once a month. Yes. And I know many practitioners and teachers in Shiatsu, and they don't give themselves that time. And they are tired and they start to have body which doesn't stand up, and they don't take this time. And sometimes they have to give up.
So now we're getting to a very, very important point. People you know have had to stop practicing Shiatsu because they are not taking care of their body or their soul or whichever part we're talking about.
Yes, yes.
So people who are watching this, Daniela has spoken. Get yourself some Shiatsu every now and then. If not Shiatsu, something else perhaps. What do you think, Daniela? Is it only Shiatsu that works?
Of course not. You can use acupuncture or whatever therapy, body therapy or psychological therapy, whatever is good. Dance, music, of course.
So what do you think is the important factor in all of those things that you've mentioned? What is it that gives us the ability to refresh ourselves and carry on?
What is it? What is what? The
What are
best?
the essential points about the modalities you talked about? Dance, you mentioned dance and acupuncture. How do they work? How do they affect us?
It's important to have something in out of your practice in Shiatsu. You have something for yourself, to nourish yourself, whatever it is.
Fantastic.
Just for balance or to refresh your mind, to open it, to communicate, to be creative.
On the wall behind you is some very interesting calligraphy. That's also an example of a parallel art form to Shiatsu, right?
I did not
Calligraphy on the
understand.
wall behind you.
Yes. Yes.
Traditionally, that's been part of the world that Shiatsu inhabits, right? Calligraphy, poetry, flower arranging, martial arts.
Yeah, this is important too. Yes.
Mm.
Your environment, nature, of course.
So we're talking about forms of nourishment. Bill, what kind of nourishment do you manage to find feeding into your life?
So many things. I like, you are asking me?
Bill, I was asking Bill. Sorry, Danielle.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll go at a tangent to your question, really, because when in the early days of Shiatsu, in Britain anyway, it wasn't seen as a therapy, it was seen as a form of self-exploration. And we were really innovative and creative, and there wasn't it wasn't a matter of teaching a form or thinking about how to work with people's problems. It was a matter of how to make contact with the wisdom of the body and explore. You know, the Western world is so dominated by the narrative mind and ignores the mind in the body in some way. So it was and so I've been nourished by always being an explorer and always finding you know, like looking under the stones, looking for the parts of myself that I've buried and ignored, and even now, and I'm 70 years old now, so it's like I feel that innovation, exploration, communication, that it all keeps things moving and stops them being stagnant and stops me being bored. And so I think one of the problems that Shiatsu has faced in Britain anyway, and maybe in the rest of Europe, is that it's become a therapy. So people go to it to solve problems rather than to explore and to develop themselves. And in the old days, my classes were huge and full of lots of movement and exploration, and people weren't interested in the subject matter or you know, learning particular techniques, or they were excited by exploring, and I think we've lost that a little bit. So I hope that'll come back.
Bill, you're bringing it back as we speak. Thank you. Superb. Annie, do you regard yourself as an explorer, an innovator?
Try not to label myself too much. It's a practice, Chris. Comes from Taoism, you know. However, I am with Danielle. Well, I had, I mean, for the first 25 years, I swapped Shiatsu with my friends, Shiatsu buddies, every week. I had a Shiatsu just a swap. First it was on a Monday night, then it was on a Thursday night. Then I had, well, I was pregnant with my daughter when I first went to Nicola's classes. She's got her own baby now, everybody, as you know. And then I had my youngest son. So through pregnancy and childbirth and death in the family and illness, and I just swapped Shiatsu. Sailed through the menopause because of Shiatsu, must say. That base of, now I don't swap so often, not every week, but still I know that, you know, if my immune system or my emotional well-being is flagging a bit, I go, oh yeah, I haven't had a Shiatsu. Time to get a Shiatsu this month. Yeah, so that was that. As for innovative, maybe Chris, maybe a radical warrior, if that's innovative. Yes.
Sounds very innovative, and it sounds slightly dangerous, but I'm sure I know you so well that I know it's not dangerous. But this idea of getting Shiatsu relatively frequently, David, is that something that you've been doing recently?
Actually, I would love to get treatment. My last treatment was in the last course I gave. Then we were 13 people, and then we had. I asked somebody, "Yeah, you mind working on me?" And I got such a beautiful treatment. It was horror conception vessel, and I thought, "Wow, that's amazing! That's such a great work." I was teaching it all the time, but this moment was so deep, and I thought, "Wow, thanks God, I got the treatment." So I went, before I started learning Shiatsu, I had more than 100 treatments, I think. I just wanted to lie down and close my eyes and dive inside. And I didn't want to know how it works, what this woman is doing. I had no idea. And then when I started to learn Shiatsu, and then I still went to see her. And now, I think 2 years ago, she stopped working. And actually, because of this, I thought, because we had this Quintalogue, I thought I will travel a little bit Switzerland when I have time, and try to get different treatments again. I need this hands-on, it's really important. I do a lot of self-massage and Qigong and stuff like that. This also helps, but the other thing, just to surrender. And I love what Bill said also, that I think a problem in Shiatsu is that we are very, very too much in the mind, too conscious. And for me, the last 3-4 years was just somehow helping people to get to find the way back in their bodies that is more subconscious and unconscious, and to really dive there and then let the body express, and not put some techniques on top of something and have something, because then it's a mind work, and actually it should be body work. And I think this is really also a danger, that we more and more want to know so much techniques, this. But if we cannot embody it and just be then conscious, present, embodied in the body as a spiritual being, then we lose something. Yeah. And theater helps me also to express that, or to be authentic in this moment. You go on stage and the lights go on and you're nothing, you're just a point, and you learned everything, but you have to forget, and then you're just there and you act, and then you get immediately the resonance, if you're truthfully there or not. And if you're not, then you feel it, and then from introspection, you can learn, and next time you try to make it better. So yeah. Did I answer your question? I don't know.
You described something which I usually call spontaneity. Does that resonate with you, that word? When you're on stage, you would have to be entirely spontaneous, right?
Yes. I mean, you prepared a lot, but then in the end, you cannot, also there, you cannot hold to a technique, how to breathe, how to talk, to be loud enough, to have the emotion. You're just there, you're present, and you react on the situation and act along the piece that was written by an author with all the emotions, subtext, blah, blah, blah. You're in the middle of this muchness, you're at this point, and you have to be very spontaneous and authentic.
I was just going to ask you whether the word authenticity also described an aspect of that experience.
Absolutely. And I think this is what I'm, then what I can work on all the time. Can I be authentic and allow myself to be myself? What does that mean? Where I have my barriers, belief systems? Can I be open, or do I have just to pretend something? And sometimes you manage, sometimes you don't. But this is constant resonance with life, that I am, that you are, that we are, and then somehow there's resonance, and then there's something can appear. So yeah.
Danielle, we've had a couple of interesting words introduced here: spontaneity and authenticity. And David now speaks of resonance. Do these words, are they useful for you in your practice, in your life?
Yes, of course. Yes.
So in what sense would you say that spontaneity is a useful thing to cultivate?
I don't know how to explain it, but when I started, I was just in a passion. It was a passion, just a chance for me to be able to teach as soon as I started, because I didn't know I was living in Japan for 7 years, and I didn't know what was happening in France, in Europe in general, and I was not sure that I could work with Shiatsu. So first I was thinking I would teach yoga, so I started. And it came to me, it was just a chance. So, and I was easily, I found it very easy to do it. But first I did it in the Japanese way.
Mm-hmm.
So that was not so easy for the students, because we don't speak so much in Japan. Matsunaga didn't teach so much theory. It was just doing, and we do the same and change partner and do again. So I did the same. And for some students, it was like they didn't feel so well because they needed more communication. So I learned little by little. I understood that in France, it was not possible to do like in Japan. So,
So you had to adapt your approach, it
yes,
sounds like.
Yes,
Yeah.
I had to.
Which is also an aspect of spontaneity, but we call it adaptability. Bill, does that sound like something that's important to you, adaptability?
Yes, it's important.
Do you want to say anything, Danielle? Sorry.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, so, yeah, I don't like the word spontaneity, because it has the feeling that there's a conscious mind, and then things coming up just generally, which are coming up from the unconscious. And what I'm really interested in is that the different parts of the body and the different tissues and different aspects of myself are intelligent, conscious beings. And so when something comes up which is surprising for my conscious narrative mind, it isn't really spontaneity, it's another part of me speaking in its own language. And often that language is a sound or a posture or a movement. And so I think what David was saying about theatre is really important for me, because what you're doing in theatre really is you're not pretending to be somebody else. You're in some way finding that part of yourself that is this other being. And so I think there's two aspects to spontaneity. One is sort of letting off steam. Like when I was in Japan, I went to quite a few Katsukunondo classes, and people would sort of exploding and running off the walls and frothing at the mouth and shaking and everything. And it was just letting off steam. And in some way, there was no meaning behind it. But there's another form of what you might call spontaneity, where different parts of you are speaking, but not in words, that there's something that comes up through posture and movement, and which is a way, listen, if you can listen to that language, it's not random at all. It's not just random energy. It's actually a wisdom that from another part of you. So you asked me about adaptability. I think adaptability means for me not just relying on my narrative mind, that I if I'm making a decision or looking for inspiration, I'm not just thinking about it. I'm listening to the movements of the different organs and seeing what my stomach has to say, seeing what my spine has to say, and all of these different parts of me have a different contribution to the group. So
that sounds like you're almost describing something that a lot of people call intuition, Bill. Would you differentiate those things in some way?
I don't think it's intuition. All these words are words that are made up by the narrative mind to say, I don't know what you're talking, I don't know where this comes from. It is intuition in some way. It's like I think it's just that there is an intelligence in these different, and intuition and a processing. That's what I want to say, that intuition seems to be a ready-made thing, but these different beings within me can process things in a not through language, but through movement and through sensation. And there's an intelligence and an ability to process things through the body, which I'm interested in teaching other people. So
wonderful, thank you. So this form of intelligence working through the body and listening deeply, Annie, is that something that you've had useful?
Yes, the listening skills in all its depth, listening to not just with our auditory senses, but yes, very useful. But I'd like to backtrack a little bit, because what I'm interested in is the relationship between spontaneity and learning form and no form, and how to teach that, I mean, we have a lot of structure in our curriculum nowadays. In Shiatsu education, we have a lot of structure, some of which I have contributed to that structure by getting these qualifications up and running. So I'm very interested in how we can use structure to support spontaneity, to use the form, the kata, in order to find freedom. Mm-hmm. And then it is finding that freedom only comes from what Bill was saying, that we learn to listen and to acknowledge all perceptions. That's in ourselves, in our own practice, but also as Shiatsu practitioners. So yeah, the relationship between form and no form, between structure and freedom, is something that I continue to explore.
These are central, I think. Annie, you've identified something very interesting there. David, the relationship between structure and freedom, do you have anything to say about that in your life and your practice?
Yes. For a long time, for me, structure was difficult, this metal element, but I felt how important it is to give clarity. So then I think the essence of structure would be to be really crystal clear. And if structure can help us to get clear, and then we can somehow learn all the techniques, we need them as a guideline, we structure it, and then when we can absorb them and forget them, then suddenly the space opens up for what Bill said, the listening and to get all the informations, energies and information coming, and then the technique is not important anymore. You just use it, but you don't even think about it, and then it's not there anymore somehow. And I feel the same in theater. At the beginning, you don't know where to put your hands, or you don't know the text, you don't know who is the vis-a-vis, and by then you exercise, and suddenly you get space, and suddenly you get other informations and other emotions and possibilities. Then you can choose whether you go that way, or you stay on that track, or if you're afraid, or if you want to push something. So I think that's very interesting. Yeah, this metal and wood impulses and structure, and how to balance that out in your life and or in a school, in an organization. And Switzerland is very overstructured also, so you need to find the spaces where then it's possible to be who you are and not being too much. Don't want to make it perfect, because that's then a wrong energy. Wrong energy, just a difficult one.
Yeah. So this balance, Danielle, between freedom and structure, how do you maintain your balance between those polarities?
Between freedom and
Structure.
Structure. Well, we need a structure anyway to teach. For people come to be certified 1, 3, 2, 4, 5 years. So of course we need a structure, but inside that I live my inspiration work, and anyway what I liked more in my teaching is to work with elements. So it was always the theme of the seminar.
Do you mean the 5 elements, or you mean something else?
5 elements, yes.
So within the 5 elements, there is already a balance between structure and freedom.
Yes, and many things you can do. Yes.
Many, many things. And in your personal life, how have you managed to use those tools to maintain your vitality?
How do I manage to
maintain your own vitality using these same tools?
So I receive Shiatsu. I walk a lot because I'm in Marseille. There is a seaside, lot of places you can walk. I swim. I dance tango.
Wow, wonderful.
I introduce also in some seminars dance, Shiatsu and dance of 5 elements. So all this makes life interesting.
It gives life variation.
Yes.
You mentioned the word passion before. Do you want to say anything more about passion in terms of Shiatsu and your path as a Shiatsu therapist?
Passion, yes. I received for the first time Shiatsu when I was a student, before I went to Japan. And it was a kind of a revelation. I found myself changed suddenly. So I guess it was a kind of harmony. I don't know, I didn't have the words at this time. But anyway, I wanted to learn, to go to Japan and learn Shiatsu because of this Shiatsu I received.
That's quite a journey to make, to go to Japan. It's quite a long journey to make. It's quite a dramatic decision you took there.
Yes, but I was studying Chinese and Japanese. At this time, it was difficult to go to China, so I decided anyway to go to Japan. But then I decided to learn Shiatsu.
Fantastic. Bill, the word passion came up just now. Is that an interesting word for you?
Yes. I was just thinking when it came up what my passion in life has been. And I think it's, I don't know how to describe this really, but it's to do with trying to what I put it in another way. I think what the issues that we have in the human race at the moment, and in the planet, and in all this, there's a lot of dysfunction and conflict, and I think a lot of it comes from people following other people. That Arthur Koestler once said that anger was a violent emotion, but it was love that was the dangerous emotion, because it meant that you could get one person having a dangerous idea and lots of people following them. And so I think my passion in life has been to try and find ways in which I can help myself and help other people to not be a follower, to that in some way to be, I find this hard to, it's like finding a way in which I'm not encouraging people to be sheep. I'm encouraging people to be goats. and this really comes through in my teaching and in my shiatsu. I find that instead of putting myself forward as a solution to people's problems, and therefore they follow me, that I'm sabotaging their projection. And in a way, this comes to the point of this conversation, in that I think my longevity in things has been not taking on people's projections, because people's projections are very heavy. And instead of, and it's very difficult to do that. Like if someone comes with a problem and with and they're suffering, in some way there's a real tendency to try and rescue them. But what that does then is it puts them in a position of passive and victim, and you in the position of magician who's waving a wand and they feel brilliant. And in some way then they become attached and dependent, and that's very heavy. And it also means that they're more vulnerable to being influenced by other forces coming in the world, you know, the forces of violence and bigotry, and you know, they're more vulnerable because. So I've been trying to sabotage people's sheep-like tendencies all my life, and that's been my passion.
Wonderfully stated. There's a woman on the right top hand corner of my screen who I've definitely categorized as a goat rather than a sheep. Annie, do you have any final words for our audience about longevity in practice from your particular perspective?
Final words, longevity in practice. Well, you just have to love. Love yourself, love Shiatsu, love your students, love your clients, love your ESF colleagues and everybody else. You just have to learn to love. Bit lofty, but yeah.
Well, I think actually you said it in a very earthy way, Annie, so I appreciate that very much. Yes, because that's it. All the bonds that we create between each other, they're very, very important. Love, David, was introduced here by both Bill and Annie in different ways. But what would you say would be something that you would want people to take away from this conversation about their longevity in practice?
Yeah, it would be beautiful if they find there is this picture, you know it better than I do, of the candle, the Taoist of the three treasures. So they have your Qing, Qi, and Chen. So you burn your essence, and then you can ask yourself, what am I burning for? So, and adjust the flame, that don't put it on all the ends. And then ask yourself, what do you want to contribute? So what do you share more, the spirit essence? So what is that? What is that? What are you really burning for? Or what do you want to burn? So that's, and that's also can be love or can be something else also.
Lovely. Daniele, what would be your final words in this conversation to our audience today?
Always be happy to do what you do.
Ah, fantastic. Now, how do we do that? How do we achieve that?
You have to believe in it first.
First of all. And continue believing in it, I suppose.
Yes. Sure. Never stop.
That smile says a lot. Thank you, Daniele. Bill, I'll leave you the final word. What would you say the most important thing would be for longevity in practice?
I like the word love. I wish I could love more, I think. But I think the most important thing for me is having clear boundaries as well. And I think clear boundaries allows me to allow people in without being afraid that they'll swamp me in some way. And so I suppose there's an aspect of detachment and distance. But instead of it being me withdrawing within my boundaries, me filling my boundaries so that people can meet me at the boundary and I can meet them. I think often I think in the Shiatsu world, we tend to, there's a tendency to have very unclear boundaries because we don't like to say no. We like to be able to support and to, but I think that those boundaries have been really useful for me and for my students and clients to really feel that they are a separate person and they are themselves rather than attached to me. And that makes me light, and I can go through life without lots of weights pulling on me.
Beautifully stated, Bill. Thank you for rounding off that discussion. Folks, it's been a pleasure to host you guys. Annie, David, Daniele, and Bill, thanks for showing up. Thanks for giving us an hour of your time and pearls of wisdom that will be circulating in our systems for many days to come, I'm sure. Thanks to the ESF people who put this together, Joanne, Irene, Susanna, Sylvie, and the girls in Vienna, Carolina, Emily, and Antigone. Thanks for showing up. Thanks to everybody who watched. And folks, this is a beautiful art. Let's just carry on doing. Patricia came back as well. Wonderful. Thanks for all your contributions, everybody. And Shiatsu Without Borders. According to Bill, we do need borders, but let's fill them all the way out to the brim, right? And carry on spreading this beautiful, beautiful art. Mary just came in. What? With that, ladies and gentlemen, I think we are out of here. Joanne, flick the switch. Thanks, everybody. See you soon, somewhere, somehow. Ciao.